Hello everyone, and welcome back to Croc Creek Brewery. Tonight you are going to be experiencing a brand new recipe from Croc Creek Brewery. This is a recipe I have never tried before in homemade winemaking, and I'm very excited to do it. So, tonight we're going to be making pineapple wine. Now, I love pineapple juice. I have a history with pineapple juice I'll share with you here in a second. I have never attempted to make pineapple wine. I have heard that it has been done before. When I looked online for several recipes, some guides, things like that, some estimates as far as fruit or juice goes, I couldn't find much. As far as I understand, it is mostly a country wine that most people make according to their own tastes. There's not really a go-to recipe or structure that people follow. Now, that being said, if you've watched my channel before, you know that if I use fresh fruit, I use 3 pounds per gallon to make wine. That's generally my go-to. It's turned out very well in the times I've used it. However, today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be using straight up pineapple juice. I have made juice wines before. Each one's a little different. One of the old channels I followed, he's very much still around, is doing it cheap with Pawpaw. Pawpaw makes his homemade wine with store-bought juice in the cartons. It's very simple, very quick, very easy. I love his recipe. I started out doing his recipe, and if I'm gonna make a carton wine, I generally follow his line of thought, which is 2 cups of sugar. If I can remember it off the top of my head, 1 quart of liquid, 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 packet of yeast. That's Pawpaw's recipe. But I'm not doing that tonight. This is not Pawpaw's homemade wine. This is Crockett Creek Brewery's homemade wine, and this is an experiment. And you're going to be here with me for the journey. So, I bought several of these 1-quart jugs of pineapple juice from the store today that was on sale. I love finding juice and fruit on sale. I bought 4 of them. So, these are a little over 1 quart. These are a 1 1/4 quart, I believe, or a little less than 1 1/4 quart. It's 1 quart, 0.14 fluid ounces. A little over a quart. We're going to be making 1 gallon of wine today, and we're not going to be using any water. Straight up pineapple juice. Let's get technical here for a second. I generally don't make my wines to a certain specific gravity. Generally, I put my juice together, I put my fruit together, I add a certain amount of sugar to bring it up to a certain-ish specific gravity. Whatever it turns out to be is great. If it's 10.5, awesome. 12%, awesome. 18%, cool. I don't generally follow a certain alcohol by volume. But lately, I've been getting into aging my wines. I've been setting aside several bottles to age for 6 months and for a year. So in 6 months, I'll crack a bottle of a particular wine and try it. And then in a year, I have a different bottle that I'll crack open and try it. I'm doing that because I've begun to learn the value of patience in homebrewing. Patience is your friend. And especially in the meads that I've made, age is necessary. And in a lot of my other home brews, you'll greatly appreciate a few months of age. If you remember back to my video on making black grape wine, it turned out wonderful right out of the fermenter. But even with 1 month and 2 months of age on it, it is spectacular. The difference is exceedingly noticeable with age, and I think it'll get better. So I've set aside a couple jars, a couple bottles for 6 months and a year. We're going to be trying those, seeing how it turns out. That being said, I've begun to make a lot of my homemade wines at a higher ABV than usual, so that they store for longer and less likely to be contaminated and go bad. I had a bunch of wines go bad when I moved from Houston. I think a lot of that had to do with me stirring it up and adding oxygen to it in the actual moving process. Some of that, I think, was contributed to by the lack of alcohol in the wine itself. I generally make a lot of my wines at 10 to 12% alcohol. I've raised that standard to about 15% alcohol in the last couple wines I've made. If you watched my last video on making grapefruit wine, I made that to 15% alcohol to the dot. I had to do a lot of math, which I'm not great at, but I don't mind doing a little math to help myself in the long run. Today, we're faced with the same problem. We're using straight up pineapple juice. What I did off camera is check the specific gravity of the pineapple juice itself, which is about 1.050. So I did some calculations. If I want my final specific gravity to be, well, if I want my starting original gravity minus my final gravity to equal out to 15%, I need to start out with a starting gravity of 1.115. I took a specific gravity reading from my pineapple juice, which is at 1.050. Did a little math. I need 0.064 specific gravity of sugar. I know from experience, I know from research, that 1 pound of sugar adds 0.064, no, sorry, 0.046 points of specific gravity to a gallon of water. I'm not sure how that'll change as far as the density of pineapple juice. I don't think it'll change by much. So I did a little subtraction, a little addition, took my 1.114 specific gravity, that'll be 15% potential alcohol, minus the specific gravity of the pineapple juice. That leaves me with a 1.064 specific gravity that I need. So I put together 0.064, which is about 1.33 pounds. 1 pound, 5.3 ounces. of sugar. That's what we're going to be using today. So I apologize if you don't like math for that little interruption of algebra, calculus, nastiness. I apologize for that. But as I get more technical into homebrewing, math is necessary, especially when it comes to specific gravity, to measuring your potential alcohol output. You have to do math. So there you go. But let's go ahead and get started. I have here my 1 gallon fermentation vessel, 1 gallon carboy. Oh, and by the way, I'm still enjoying a little bit of Coors Light tonight. We're almost at the point where we don't have to buy this anymore. We are very close. In fact, let me show you. Tonight, I racked my grapefruit wine. I didn't show it on video because it's pretty standard how to rack wine. And I probably won't show you how I bottled it because bottling it is, again, pretty standard. I'll show you a taste test video for sure, but let me show it to you. This right here is my grapefruit wine right there. Look at how hazy that is. That is one of the haziest wines I have ever seen. I hope it doesn't take an incredibly long time to clear out. We're gonna give it, I'm gonna start out giving it about 2 weeks. And then we're gonna check it. It is almost dry. It's at a specific gravity of 1.030, which is a semi-dry wine. We started out with a 1.114, which should bring it up to 15%. This right here is my rosemary hydromel. I've also racked this off of the rosemary. This is going to be a very low ABV. This is going to be about 6.5% alcohol. As you can see, it's clearing up very nicely. I'm going to give it another week, maybe 2 weeks to clarify. It still has very, very little to ferment. Less than 1/10 of a point. Not much at all. My main issue of concern is clarification at this point. If it doesn't clarify much further than this, I'll go ahead and bottle and carbonate it. But that's what I've been up to. Back to the recipe. So we have our 1 gallon fermentation vessel. Let's go ahead and grab our funnel. Everything's already been sanitized in Star San. I have a bucket down here full of Star San. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of, whoa. First, let's add our sugar so we don't make our funnel sticky and wet and clog up our sugar. That's a good idea. Let's carefully add some of our sugar. Like I said, this is an experiment. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I really wanted to try a pineapple wine. I think I did my math correctly and appropriately. We'll find out here shortly. So there we go. We're not using very much sugar today because our pineapple juice is so high in sugar itself. We're just bringing our ABV up to what I believe will be about a potential of 15%. That is about 1 pound, 5.3 ounces. Let's go ahead and add our pineapple juice up to a gallon. Trying not to make a mess. I forgot that I'm going to need my can opener for the rest of these. I usually don't do canned juice. So, one second. Here we go. Okay, let's add a little bit more and then we'll stir in our sugar. Okay, that's plenty good. That's a little over half a gallon. Let's go ahead and stir in our sugar. This is the great thing about doing 1 gallon batches. It's so much easier to stir and handle. I've been making a lot of 5 gallon batches recently of beer, mead, wine. Because I just recently obtained 5 gallon fermenters, I've been really excited about building my supply and my cellar. You can see right here, look at all the stuff sticking to the top of the carboy. That's all sugar. That's a lot of sugar. So we're gonna let that sit for a minute. I'm actually gonna pour me a little bit of that pineapple juice. There we go. That's good. So, let me tell you why I decided to make a pineapple wine. It's not a very common wine that I can find. It's very much a country homestead wine. The reason I chose to do it is because I have a history with pineapple. I remember as a young man growing up in Texas, when I would go to help my grandmother herd her sheep and vaccinate her sheep and all that goes along with raising livestock. We would wake up early in the morning, drive half an hour or more to go to my grandmother's place, and we would go first into the house to go eat breakfast. She would have a huge mound of scrambled eggs and a whole mound of wheat toast and white toast and jars of jelly and jams for you to use. But to drink, she had 2 options. Coffee, black, of course, and pineapple juice, straight from the jar. Not a bottle. Straight from the 1 quart can. She would have that whole can in the refrigerator. She would crack it open and pour you a little bit off. I remember drinking pineapple juice as a young man before I actually drank coffee on a regular basis. I would have me a few glasses of pineapple juice to get me going in the morning before I went to go herd the sheep. So, on my last recipe I did on video, which was grapefruit wine, I did that because I remembered eating grapefruit with my dad before we went out to work in the morning. And now we're making something that I remember my grandmother doing. And I did that sort of for that reason. The second reason is it's coming up on spring, and I wanted to make some more wines that are more spring friendly, more light, more refreshing. Not like my black grape wine, which is a good dessert wine. It's good before you go to bed. It's kind of dark, kind of heavy. I wanted refreshing, light, something you would enjoy on a hot summer day. So I've been making a lot of those more refreshing, light beverages as we come into spring, and I'll continue to make them as we come into summer. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of my story on why I thought pineapple wine would be pretty good. It is good stuff. So let's shake this up a little bit more. It's very, very foamy. It's going to be hard to get all the sugar dissolved in this. It is so saturated with sugar already. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more of our pineapple juice out of our can. We may actually have enough to make 2 gallons. I bought 4 cans total. That doesn't look like it. 1.5 gallons. Maybe I can make 1.5 gallons. Okay, so we've filled this up, but I want you to see just how foamy this is. Look at that. We are up to the neck of our bottle in foam. I have a feeling that this is going to be a very active ferment. We're actually going to let this sit for a bit and calm down before we shake it up anymore. What I'm going to do is let this sit, settle down. I'll shake it up one more time, and then I'll be back to see you here in a second. Okay, everybody, so I've actually let my pineapple wine sit for a long time. Our foam's really not going down by much. So what I've decided to do is go ahead while we're waiting and add our yeast nutrient to it. Now we're going to be using raisins. There's debate as to whether how much yeast nutrient raisins add. I've had pretty good success adding raisins to my wines. They don't change the flavor by much. They add quite a bit of body to my wine, and they seem to react very well with the yeast. So take that as you will. I have made a practice of going ahead and pinching my raisins, kind of breaking them open as I add them to my wine. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and add 30 raisins to my wine. I'll probably fast forward through this because it takes a little bit of time. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have gone ahead and added all of our raisins. I'm going to introvert this for a bit to let the raisins sort of meld, settle to the bottom, and hopefully get rid of some of that foam that's causing us so much trouble. And we're we're going to gently re-invert it. Okay, that got rid of a little bit of foam. Not too much. We might try that a couple more times. It's been a while since I've had one be this foamy. So, as you can see, we are right up on the border of the neck of our carboy. I'm not sure if I will add much more to this as far as pineapple juice goes. This is above our 1 gallon marker. It's a little bit over a gallon. I like to do a little bit over a gallon so that when I rack it, I have a full gallon. I think we're pretty much there. Again, I have a feeling this is going to be a very active ferment. We're probably going to let this sit for a few more minutes. But in the meantime, let me show you what we're going to be using as far as yeast. This is my go-to yeast. I use it on just about every one of my wines. This is Lalvin K1V 1116. This is a champagne yeast, and it is a powerhouse. It has a potential, or it has a alcohol tolerance of 18%. Very rarely do I ever go all the way up to 18% ABV on any of my wines. Even though I've been increasing my ABV for storage purposes, I'm still at only 15%, which is extremely high for what I typically do. Lalvin K1V has no problem getting there. So that's what we're going to be using tonight. We're only going to be using probably about a quarter of a packet. I'm going to go ahead and add it. This video has run long enough, and what I'm going to do after this is pretty well standard. We're going to add a little bit of yeast. There we go. That's plenty. It doesn't take much to get a colony going. So we're going to save the rest of this packet. It's going to go in the fridge, and it's going to go for our next brew. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this sit for a little while longer and let the foam die down. I may try to shake it and stir it occasionally to get the yeast mixed in, get rid of some of the clumps of yeast. Then I'm going to add an airlock to it. Okay, hold up. Whoa. Disregard everything I was just about to say. Okay? We almost forgot the most vital part of our homebrewing, and that is checking our original specific gravity. Now, we had a guess at what our OG gravity was going to be, which was going to be 1.115. But we need to see what it actually is. So I have here my turkey baster and my graduated cylinder. Let's dip into this and see what we've got. Let's try to get below the foam if we can. I'm sure our graduated cylinder will be foamy as well. We'll try to get below it if we can. It doesn't seem too bad. Okay. Now, here we have our hydrometer. Nice and sanitized. Gently put this in here. and stir it around, get rid of some of the bubbles. And let's see what we have. Okay, so currently we are at 1.105, which is a little lower than what I initially guessed, but it's only 0.10 points away from our specific gravity. We're still at about, I believe, the 14% ABV range, which I'm entirely satisfied by. I could be specific and add sugar a little bit at a time till I reach that ABV, continuously stirring it till I get to 1.115. I'm not going to be that particular. My goal was 15%. I'm at about 14%. I'm okay with that. We're still at a pretty high ABV. It's still going to store perfectly well. We're good as far as I'm concerned. We're not at our exact specific gravity that we guessed with all of our maths, but we're okay. We're still good. This is still acceptable for me. We're going to go ahead and record this on a note, and we're going to put this on our bottle, on our carboy. These go back in our sanitizer liquid. And this is going to be poured back into our carboy because I'm not going to waste any bit of this. Gently if we can, because I know. You caught me. Okay, so I'm not actually okay with it being only 1.105 specific gravity. I want it to equal out to 1.115. That's what I intended it to be. You caught me sneaking in more sugar, and you caught me checking the specific gravity. So, let's go ahead and do that. Let's see if we've reached our goal. This is mostly for my sake, seeing as it was intended to be a 15% ABV beverage. Let's see if we've reached it. We have 1.115. Yes, I was particular. Yes, I was picky. But that was my recipe, and I'm going to reach my goal. So let's go ahead and add an airlock to it, and let's be done with this pineapple wine, shall we? Here we have our airlock and our bone. Let's go ahead and put that in there. Let's get us a paper towel. I'm going to wipe down the inside of the lip of this carboy to get rid of any liquid that could prohibit a bad seal. And there we go. We are holding at negative pressure, which is a very good sign. I'm going to go ahead and add a label to this with my original gravity of 1.115, which is a 15% ABV. We're going to let this sit for probably 2 weeks to a month. We might check it after 2 weeks, see how it's doing. I have an idea this is going to be a very aggressive ferment. If it turns out to be an aggressive ferment, I might put it inside a bucket so it doesn't boil over into my kitchen and everywhere else in my house. I may set it inside something so that it's contained, or if I have to, I might put it into a blow hose with the hose running down to a separate container. We'll see. We'll know in a couple of days at least. So I'll keep you updated on this pineapple wine. I'm very excited about it, and I'm so glad that y'all joined me here at Croc Creek Brewery along for the journey. We'll see you on the next one. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.